There are few things in Sea of Thieves that can match the excitement of all-out war. When every ship on the server gets together to fight for grand riches, chaos is bound to ensue, and with it comes an experience unlike any other. As for me, I somehow found myself taking sides in this battle despite the fact that all I wanted to do was get a new sail. And that's why I love this game. What started off as a simple mission to acquire a new cosmetic turned into one of the craziest sessions of Sea of Thieves I've ever had. Little did I know what I was getting myself into when I logged into the game in middle of the night. Before I even completed my supply run, I already had a galleon come my way. And let's just say that this was going to be the calm before the storm.
Buddy, you want an alliance?
What are you guys up to? What's the plan? Naturally, it didn't matter to me what that plan was. If you are a solo player and a galleon asks you to join their alliance, chances are the safest way to get out of that situation is to simply say yes. But because I wanted to pretend that I wasn't afraid of them, I began bargaining for my allegiance. If I join your alliance, are you gonna protect me?
Of course. But we don't know when you will be attacked, unfortunately.
I'll be raising the PvP flag if I get attacked. Deal? You do the same.
Sure.
It seems we had found common ground. With a proxy bodyguard on the server, I felt more safe going about my business of unlocking a new set of sails. That decision was soon going to result in more PvP than I realistically wanted to sign up for, but alas, the alliance was formed and I handed my cursed cannonball over to them as a sign of good faith. Since these guys wanted to raid the Fort of the Damned, they needed me to send one of them to the ferry so they can acquire the pink PvP flame. But once that was done, I was free to pass. So, in order to get my hands on the Pathfinder merchant sails, I needed to do a whole bunch of lost shipment voyages. These would send me down a certain route in order to find clues that would lead me to a shipwreck. And inside that shipwreck, I'm going to find merchant manifests, of which I needed to sell 20 to get my cosmetic. But before I even found my first clue... They recruited another ship! Absolute mad lads, dude. Apparently, I was not the only one who chose cooperation over a certain demise. Now, I've seen enough alliances to know that backstabbing becomes increasingly more likely the more ships you add to the pile. Knowing that, and since I had to dive down to a bunch of shipwrecks anyway, I decided to also stock up on supplies in the event that I had to defend myself. At this point, it's also worth mentioning that shipwrecks can make for a great source of fish, further contributing to my hunter's call reputation. But hunters we were not. The galleon as well as I decided to raise the Reaper Emissary flag, knowing that this would give us the biggest monetary benefit from the loot that is hidden inside the Fort of the Damned. And only a few lost shipment voyages were enough to level up my flag to rank 5, granting me a maximum modifier. Of course, a Reaper Emissary flag puts a massive target on your back, so when I spotted a ship currently pursuing the galleon, the voices in my head got a little worried, though it didn't take long for those worries to completely disappear. You guys thought he was in trouble. He just recruited another ship. I feel like they were fighting and they were like, hey, you can join our alliance or die. These guys got Charisma 100. Jesus. And yet another bee had joined the hive. These guys had somehow single-handedly created about as safe an environment as I could ask for, allowing me to make great progress on my quest. Now, I am no stranger when it comes to forcing others into an alliance, but last time I did that, everyone just kinda went about their own business. Seeing so many ships work in complete unison was a sight to behold, and I felt it was appropriate for me to offer my merchant cargo as payment for this one-of-a-kind experience. They even let me have all the gems they got from the FOTD after I told them that I was still grinding up reputation for the Hunter's Call, but that serenity was not meant to last. Now you see, the difference between a server alliance community and an organic alliance like this one is the fact that eventually people are going to leave the alliance as they log out to stop playing. Our numbers dwindled as the hours went on, making way for potential enemies to take their place. The free farm of yore was no longer when a new galleon joined the server. As the only remaining member of this alliance, I felt inclined to hold up my end of the bargain. This defense pact was a two-way street, and I benefited from this alliance with over 300,000 gold in profits. There was only one choice that felt right. The sales would have to wait, because now it was time for war. Now, I was under no delusion that my meddling in this fight would result in anything other than my certain demise. I was a support vessel more than anything else, meaning my goal was not to defeat the galleon, but to immobilize them. There was an ice cube's chance in hell of me winning this on my own, but when I heard the satisfying crunch of a 1 ball, I knew I had to capitalize on that. Oh! Deck shot! Whoop! No, I messed up, damn it! As much as I would have loved to be the hero that takes out an entire galleon, the damage was already done. In a regular 1v4, I should have definitely prioritized denying the resurrection and fighting the rest of the crew instead of dropping the anchor. But this wasn't a regular 1v4. My alliance capitalized on that play immediately, making sure that once anchored, these guys would not get away until their vessel kissed the bottom of the ocean. But that enemy crew was not gonna give up only because they sank. The fight continued in the ocean, and I was trying my darndest to deny them entry to any of our vessels. I eventually felt myself as another casualty of war, so I didn't know how the fight ended, but when I checked on my allies, it seemed like we had survived the worst, for now at least.
Cliff, you legend!
Are you guys okay? Did you get the other ones? Is everybody alright? Are all of them dead?
We're all far.
I guess my sacrificial play really had not gone to waste, but of course the threat was not vanquished. Since this was all natural and organic PvP, as opposed to the match-made variety, these guys could and certainly would come back to try again. I recommended to my alliance that they should be selling their loot intermittently instead of stacking it because of that fact. As for me, I still had to deliver 2 more merchant manifests before I could claim my sales, and thankfully, one such manifest was already sitting on my ship. I was excited to finally bring my grind to an end with only a single delivery being necessary to claim my prize. But little did I know how valuable of a target I really was. Oh boy. Are they coming for revenge? Oh no. Guys are not getting the skin today. These guys definitely had the right idea. Isolate the weakest link to make sure they can take on the other galleon without me being able to interfere. I was torn between trying to keep them away from my alliance or going towards them to ask for help. For now, sailing against the wind was my best chance to survive because the sloop goes faster than a galleon under those conditions. I even had enough time to sell some of my fish that I gathered from all the shipwrecks. But eventually, the enemy caught on what I was doing. They knew I was merely stalling for time, so they decided to go for a round 2 at the Fort of the Damned instead of trying to eliminate me first. Thankfully, I arrived before they did, though that made me even more surprised over the fact that I found my allies' galleon almost completely engulfed in flames. Are you guys okay? What happened?
Cliff, thank you.
We got kegged.
By who? Something didn't add up. It seemed as though that galleon was not the only one out to steal the treasure, with an unknown assailant having struck without anyone noticing. But that wasn't something I had the luxury of worrying about right now. The enemy galleon had arrived, and trust me when I say that, fighting them within the mist of the fort was anything but fun. I didn't know how far my alliance was into clearing the fort, or if any treasure was still on the island. All I knew was that my point-blank blunderbuss did not kill my target, and that I forgot to bring food like an absolute bozo. If we are fighting a hidden enemy on top of that galley, our advantage in numbers completely went out the window, meaning we had to adjust our strategy.
Go to Reapers and sell. It's easier to defend there.
Oh boy! Okay, I'm toast. Did he sacrifice himself for that? The unseen assailant had struck again. These keg plates were becoming increasingly dangerous, but thankfully the other galleon had to peel off to repair, giving my alliance a chance to help me stabilize. Thanks to the shipwrecks, I had supplies up the wazoo to fight anybody in naval combat, but if we keep getting attacked from the shadows, that would prove to become a big issue. Not that this was the only issue.
Cliff, can you hear me? Is my mic working?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we can't sell the chests on the island.
This was bad news. Whoever orchestrated the keg attacks had done so right after my alliance finished the Fort of the Damned. With all of them rushing to save their ship, there was no doubt in my mind that the most valuable treasure on the island was long gone. This fight was the perfect cover-up for whoever was responsible for that. We had to defend ourselves against the galleon, and as such, there was no time to go hunting for the thief. Thieving? In my pirate game? It's more likely than you think. Of course, it was a matter of survival for the rest of us as I continued to lay siege upon the enemy galleon. Despite my lack of success the last time around, I decided to challenge my enemies once more to try and end this encounter so that we can search for the thief. But things weren't meant to be that easy. Hey, sir, stop that. Thank you. Perfect. Where's my ship? My ship's okay.
On the boat, Cliff. One with you on the boat.
Okay. I got food rigged. Ooh, nice shot. Okay, the holy lag, Batman. Can I move my character? This game is not working right now. I think these guys are playing like on the moon. It is crazy. Hit reg is not working. They're like teleporting around. Who won? They won. Oh, that sucks. Things definitely were not going as expected, and I don't just mean me accidentally shooting one of my allies. The server was crumbling under the weight of all these players fighting in a single area. I had hoped that my shenanigans on the enemy galleon would be enough of a distraction, but me biting the big one gave our enemies enough time to sink our flagship. At that point, it was standard procedure. I circled around their immobilized vessel with a relentless barrage of cannon fire aiming to put the final nail in the coffin, switching to blunderbombs whenever I got into the broadside to deny them the ability to fight back. It took a few minutes of pounding lead into their ship, but eventually I came out victorious, and much to my surprise, I was not the only one left standing.
Hello!
Hey, welcome in. Did you get all of the loot from the FOTD while we were fighting? Okay, if you got all of it, just bring it to Reapers, okay? If there's something left, go grab it right now. Grab all the stuff, alright, before they come back, and just bring it to Reapers. It seems that I have finally found the thief. This duo sloop was apparently responsible for a lot of my headaches throughout this encounter, but I didn't have time to be picky. The galleon was certainly about to come back, and I had no intention of fighting these guys as well. Eventually, they joined our alliance despite having stolen 2 Athena chests, but I mean, do I care about that? It's not my loot, and frankly speaking, that makes them pretty dang good pirates, the variety of which I was happy to fight alongside instead of against. Their vessel would make for a new flagship, whilst our own galleon decided to go for a ramming play as soon as our enemies returned, which I hate to admit was a lot more effective than I would have assumed.
Ram trap, best strat.
I can't believe this worked. I refuse to believe this worked. It very much appeared as though our enemies were running on empty. With every victorious encounter, we had weakened their morale a tiny bit more. I refused to give in until my mission was complete, and with that goal in mind, I continued to fight through my exhaustion. I mean, okay, our own fleet also had some amount of trouble coordinating together with a new vessel, but there was enough fire within us to see this through to the end. I commandeered our fleet to set sail towards Reaper's hideout. We would make our last stand right there, even if it meant TDMing our brains out. At one point, my camera bugged out and I couldn't move it left or right. It was only thanks to my enemy running straight at my face that I came out victorious in that 1v1. But once that was fixed, it was time to TDM like I had never TDM'd before. Killing them as fast as possible was the name of the game, so I switched over to a double gun loadout to protect those who were currently in the process of selling our treasure. The server instabilities definitely did not get any better just because we switched locations, with lots of lagging in the form of teleportation still taking place. But eventually, we got every single piece of loot sold. For one final battle, I had my galleon friends commandeer my sloop whilst I was fighting the galleon until they sank yet again. And now, I could finally go and finish what I sought out to do in the first place. We collected the final merchant manifest, sailed over to Sanctuary Outpost, and finished my commendation. After investing blood, sweat, and tears throughout the last 6 hours, I could finally claim my prize. One which was made even more memorable thanks to all the allies and enemies I made along the way. And with that, we can close the book on the final chapter of the Sea of Tales for 2022. If you don't want to wait till next year, what about you check out my last episode in which I teamed up with Wellen and Brandon to chase down a salty Reaper emissary. You can find the code on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Thanks as well for all of your support this year, and here's to an even greater 2023. Peace.